So once again, I say namaste and a warm welcome. Today, as you know, we are going to discuss the topic, the lost ring. I think I'll keep the suspense on for a little longer. What is this lost ring? But it's true that this is the wisdom of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi, which we are going to imbibe and explore together today. So let me share my presentation with all of you, and we'll begin with our prayer. His compassionate eyes, the deep wisdom in the depth of his gaze. So truly amazing. Today we are going to look at Shlokas 26, 27 and 28. Last time we had done Shlokas 24 and 25. Before we begin, I would like to offer my pranams to the source of my inspiration. With your mic on mute, please do join me in chanting Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Asatoma Satkamaya. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi, whose Sat Darshanam we are going to explore today. I offer my pranams at the feet of Sri Narasimha Prabhuji, who is guiding me on the path of Atma Vichara. I also offer my pranams to Sri Adi Shankaracharya, who has left behind invaluable literature, commentaries, books on Advaita Vedanta. May the grace of all great masters of wisdom always be with us and establish us in the self. Thank you for joining me in the prayer. So it is customary always to take whatever we are studying, when we are studying a scripture or the composition of a great master, we need to look at it in context, right? So what are the shlokas that came before the ones we are going to study? That gives us the context. So shlokas 24 and 25, which we took up in the previous session. Let us now see what is the summary of those two shlokas. So here Bhagwan says, the inert body cannot say I. The body, unless it is enlivened by consciousness, has no capacity to move or be alive on its own. It is not self-sustained. It is self-sustained with a capital S. So it is the self that sustains the body. It is consciousness. Therefore, Bhagwan is saying, the inert body cannot say I. Real consciousness, which is sustaining the body, it is infinite. It has no beginning, no end, and no change. So this consciousness is not saying anything. It exists. So between this inert body and infinite consciousness, appears a limited I, an I that is limited just to the body. What is this I, which we call ego? Bhagwan says it has so many names, not just ego, not just aham. It is called granthi or knot of matter. It is called bandha or bondage. It is called sukshma sharira or the subtle body. It is called mind or chitta. It is also called becoming, bhava. It is called jiva or the individual self. All these are synonyms, says Bhagwan. And what is the function of this I, this ego? It is the interface between the body and the self. It links them together. It connects them together. So a connector is needed for linking consciousness to the body. That's what Bhagwan is saying in the 24th sloka. And this link is the ego. In the 25th sloka, Bhagwan goes on to say, this phantom without a form, the ego, comes into being taking hold of a form, which is the body. So this mind or ego or subtle body does not have a form of its own. It's like a ghost. Phantom is a ghost. So it's like a ghost, a formless ghost, but it possesses a form. We all say, no, a ghost came and possessed somebody. So in the same way, the ego comes and possesses a form. What is that form? It's the body. So keeping hold of the body, it continues to exist. Without the body, it cannot exist. Without a form, it cannot exist because it has no form of its own. So keeping hold of the form and enjoying sense objects. It is not the body that enjoys good food. It is not the body that enjoys looking at nice things, feeling nice things, listening to good music. It is the mind that enjoys through the body. The senses give the inputs to the mind. The mind or the ego has this feeling of enjoyership, bhoktritva. So, I enjoy listening to music, we say. You know, I went to a restaurant yesterday. Oh, amazing food, I say. Can't tell you how good it was. Is it the body that enjoyed the food? It is the tongue that tasted, but the taste was enjoyed by the mind or the ego. So keeping hold of the form, it continues to exist. Keeping hold of the form, the ego enjoying the sense objects, it grows in strength. It grows in strength. The more it enjoys, the more it grows. Because the ego loves to enjoy. Each time there is an experience, the ego grows. It feels, I am enjoying. Therefore, that identity becomes stronger. The identity with the body, mind, and intellect. Saying, I am this body. I am enjoying this through the body. I am this mind. I am this intellect. That becomes stronger and bigger. Each time, the ego enjoys some sense object through the body. Then Bhagwan says, giving up a form at death. At death, everybody has to drop the body. Everyone has to drop the body. So what happens? Ego is suddenly homeless. It has no form. It cannot survive. Therefore, immediately it takes hold of a new form. That's why Shankaracharya says, Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. Again and again and again, we are reborn. The jiva, the ego, is reborn because it identifies with the body. It cannot survive with the body. So when one body drops away, when death happens, then immediately it takes hold of a new body. When the truth of this ego When we start asking, who is this ego? Who is this jiva? Who am I? I as in small I. We are not asking what is the self, because the self always exists. It has no beginning and no end. It is the ego which is transient. It is the ego that is claiming doership and enjoyership. Therefore, we question, who am I? We are questioning, who is this ego? So Bhagwan says, when the truth of the ego is sought, who is this ego? From where is it coming? What is it? Then it will surely run away, says Bhagwan. This is the way to get rid of the ego. So having looked at the summary, I would like to share with you this story of Sampurna. Sampurna. We know that in Sanskrit, Sampurna means whole, complete, right? So Sampurnamma she lived at the ashram. She was a great devotee of Bhagwan, very humble. She used to live in a village near Tiruchuli. Tiruchuli is where Bhagwan was born. So in the village next to Tiruchuli, Sampurnamma used to live. So she knew all about Bhagwan. She knew about how he had his death experience, how he was liberated, and that he was now living in Tiruvannamalai. She had heard about all these things. But she had never gone to Tiruvannamalai to have a darshan of Bhagwan. She would always say, no, I can't leave my house and go. My husband has to be taken care of. My children have to be taken care of. Therefore, my place is in my own house. Even though her relatives went, they invited her, she had not gone. Then it so happened her husband passed away and she was devastated. So at that time, once again, she was invited by her relatives. Again, she refused. And one day she had gone to the Madurai Meenakshi temple. In the temple, she was praying in front of the deity. She has almost completed her prayers. Suddenly, a young Brahmin boy comes and he makes a strange demand. He says, will you cook and serve me a meal? Normally, people will ask for food. They will not say, you cook a meal for me. So this boy is asking, will you cook a meal for me? And Sampurnamma is very happy. She says, I have got this wonderful blessing. I can cook something and serve it to this boy. She's very happy. She turns, she says, yes. And that boy is not there. She doesn't know what has happened. So after that, when she goes back home and then she narrates this to her relatives, all her relatives say, you come to Tiruvannamalai. Don't worry about that boy. You come to Tiruvannamalai, we are going there. So this time she goes to Tiruvannamalai. She goes and sits in the presence of Bhagwan in the darshan hall. She's sitting there and looking at Bhagwan. And she's so happy. For the first time, her mind is completely thoughtless. No thoughts, no turmoil, no grief, no heaviness. She's sitting there, feeling so light, feeling so blissful. So she's so happy to be there. She goes on extending her stay. 3 weeks are up. Now she feels that it is time she needs to go back. So with great reluctance, she takes leave of Bhagwan and goes back. But the minute she goes back, her mind is again in a state of turmoil. It is again heavy. It is again full of thoughts. So Sampurnamma understands it was the presence of Bhagwan. Because of that, I was able to be quiet inside. That is why my mind became thoughtless. Her uncle understood that she longed to be back at the ashram. So he took her to the ashram. It so happened when she's standing in front of Bhagwan that day, when she has just come to the ashram again, and somebody comes and says, Shantamal, who was one of the cooks in the ashram kitchen, she has to go away. He has to leave the ashram and go away permanently. So who will replace her? She used to do a lot of cooking seva. Somebody needs to replace her. Then Bhagwan turns to Sampurna and he says, will you take the place of Shantammal? Will you do the cooking? Then Sampurna understands. Oh, this is what that small boy asked. He came and asked, will you cook me a meal? And now Bhagwan is asking, will you cook in the kitchen, not just to feed me, but to feed all the devotees? She's very happy and she starts working there. She stays there all her life practically. She said, Bhagwan often said, Sampurnammal is the best cook in the ashram. She used to cook really well. And in the kitchen, Bhagwan would be dispensing wisdom, would be dispensing teaching side by side as he taught everybody how to cook. He was a master chef, we can say. With very, very simple ingredients, he could make very tasty dishes. So he trained all the people in the kitchen how to cook. At the same time, he would keep telling Sampurnammal about his life and everything. And he initiated her into self-inquiry to ask, who am I? So one day, Sampurnammal was cooking vegetables. And Bhagwan said, you know, for vegetables to retain their flavor, their complete flavor, you need to cover the vessel with a lid. Don't just cook it in an open vessel. All the aroma escapes with the steam. So he put a lid on that vessel. And then he looked at her and he said, also Sampurnammal, you know, a lid should be put on the mind also. When you put a lid on your mind by asking, who am I? You contain the mind, you focus the mind so that it seeks the source of itself. It turns inwards and it goes back. Just like steam cannot escape when you cover a vessel with a lid, in the same way, the mind cannot escape outwards. Otherwise, always it is escaping outwards through the senses. It is engaging continuously with whatever is happening outside. It loses all its energy and focus. Instead of that, ask, who am I? When you ask, who am I? It is like putting a lid on the mind. It is forced to turn inwards and go deep. When it goes deep, then it simmers. The mind simmers inside itself. It contemplates. It goes deeper and deeper till it finds the source. So that is the way to keep your peace, to understand your true nature. So Bhagwan is saying that. Many such teachings Bhagwan gave Sampurnammal. We're taking this particular teaching because it is very relevant to the shlokas that we are going to study today. One more thing which Bhagwan said is, he told Sampurnammal, I'm always with you. Don't worry. Sampurnammal used to travel by a dark forest path. She has to come around 3 o'clock, early morning, 3 o'clock to the ashram kitchen to begin her entire day's routine. So she has to walk for quite a distance through a dark forest path, and she would get scared. She would keep hurrying and coming fast and thinking, oh, what will happen? Who will come? Then Bhagwan got to know. Chinnaswamy, the Bhagwan's younger brother, who was also manager of the ashram, he told Bhagwan, you know, Bhagwan, that Sampurnammal is scared every day. She has to come through vast stretches of the forest. So Bhagavan looks directly at Sampurna and he says, "What? Are you scared? Why are you scared? Don't you know that I am always with you?" So this made it so easy for Sampurna. He says, from that day, I would walk through the forest without a care in my mind. My feet became so light, my heart would soar to the feet of Bhagwan. And that is the way I would live through the day. So these are some things. One is to remember, an easy way to remember the self is to remember the Sadguru, who is the very embodiment of the self. So both these sadhanas Sampurna did. Self-enquiry, whatever she would do, she would go on doing self-enquiry also. And she always felt that her Karana Guru, her Sadguru, was continuously present with her. So let's see how this applies to the shlokas we are going to study. Let's do lead and follow with these two shlokas. Bhave ahamah sarvam idam vibhati. Bhave ahamah sarvam idam vibhati. Laye ahamo naiva vibhati kinchet. Laye ahamo naiva vibhati kinchet. Tasmataham rupamidam samastam. Tasmataham rupamidam samastam. Tanmarganam sarvajayaya margaha. Tanmarganam sarvajayaya margaha. So here Bhagavan is saying, Bhave ahamaha. As soon as aham or the ego rises, your ego is the thought, I am the body, mind, and intellect. So let us keep that firmly in the mind. The belief, the thought, the illusion that I am this limited body, mind, and intellect, that is called the ego. So here Ramana says, when this feeling, when this thought, when this belief, as soon as it arises, when does it arise? When we wake up from deep sleep in the morning. In deep sleep, neither the body nor the mind exist for us. We are not aware of the body, the mind is dormant. So we experience...
I think we'll look at the connection. Vani's connection may not be very.
If you keep it here only, it will go. Have you kept it here?
It's unstable. Wi-Fi.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿಲ್ವಾ?
Video off right.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. So when we wake up from deep sleep, the mind comes out of its dormant state. Remember, mind, ego, jiva are all synonyms. That's what Bhagwan told us in the earlier shloka. So here Bhagwan is saying, as soon as the mind wakes up, it once again identifies with the body. As soon as it identifies with the body, that is when we become aware of the world around us. In deep sleep, neither the body, nor the mind, nor the world exist for us. So, bhave ahamaha sarvam idam vibhati. All this, sarvam idam vibhati, shines, it comes into existence. When? Only when the ego comes into existence. Before that, it is not there. Laye ahamo naiva vibhati kinchit. Laye means dormant. Aham, ego. Na iva vibhati kinchit. None of this. Kinchit, even a tiny bit of the world. None of this. So when the ego does not exist, when the ego is dormant, laye, in deep sleep, none of this, the entire world disappears. Doesn't exist for a person in deep sleep. This is our daily experience, right? So tasmat aham rupam idam samastam. Therefore, Bhagwan is drawing a very logical conclusion. He says, tasmat, therefore, aham rupam idam samastam. All this entire world, this world that I see around me in my waking state, that entire world is nothing but aham rupam. It is nothing but the ego itself. It is a manifestation of the ego. It is a aham rupam. So the world rises when the ego rises. The world is not there when the ego is dormant. Therefore, Bhagwan is saying, ego is equal to world equation. Then he says, Tanmarganam, when you inquire deeply, Tanmarganam, Sarva Jayaya Margaha, when you inquire deeply, through self-inquiry lies the path to conquer the world, he says, to become victorious over the world. Right now, all of us, we feel that we are victims of the world most of the time. Sometimes things go according to what we want, we get what we like, etc. But very often we don't. We feel, I don't know, the world or life just goes on, its vagaries are there, and I become a victim of this whole world. But here Bhagwan is saying, when you find out who is this I who feels like a victim, find out. When you find out, when you engage in that quest, by engaging in that quest and taking it to the end point, there lies the route to victory over the world, says Bhagwan. So just we look at the translation. This shloka we chanted was a translation composed by Ganapati Muni based on Ulladu Narpadu, the Tamil rendering, the Tamil composition of Bhagwan, 40 verses on reality. So here the exact translation of this is, on the rising of the ego, this whole world arises. When the ego subsides, the world disappears. Therefore, the ego is the world. Finding the source of the ego is the way to victory over the world. Then there was another great devotee called Lakshman Sharma. So he also did a translation of Darshanam in Sanskrit, but it is not convenient for chanting. But we have taken, he himself wrote an English translation also. We have taken that English translation just to see whether we get any extra points from there. So when this thing known as I rises, then all this world rises. When the I is not, neither does the world exist. Therefore, this I is itself all the world. Therefore, extinction of the I through the quest of who is this I, or whence is this, whence is he, is getting rid of the whole world. Where is this ego? Who is this ego? Who am I? When we ask, here Lakshman Sharma is saying, it is a way of getting rid of the whole world. Does that mean For a jnani, the world disappears. Here at least, Ganapati Muni said, is a way to victory over the world. But Lakshman Sharma is saying, it is getting rid of the whole world. Then for jnanis like Ramana, for Buddha, for Shankaracharya, for Ramakrishna, doesn't the world exist anymore? They lived in this world even after getting enlightenment. They worked, they taught. How is that possible if the world disappeared for them? If they got rid of the whole world, what does that mean? So whether we say victory over the whole world or getting rid of the whole world, it still makes sense. Because for an Ajnani, even right now, you and I, we are the self. But we have forgotten. We have forgotten. We are ignoring the self, which is the substratum, because we have identified so strongly with this limited entity called the body. Body means here body, mind, intellect. So we have so strongly identified with the body that we have forgotten our true identity. Therefore, when we look at the world around us, what do we see? We see it as matter. We see it as being separate from us. Right? But for a jnani, what does a jnani see? For a jnani, first we do neti neti, I am not this, in order to get established in the self. But when we are established in the self, we see that in fact it is iti iti. The body is a manifestation of the self. The whole world is a manifestation of the self. While we focus on separateness, while we focus on matter, what does a jnani do? He focuses on the self is manifesting as the world. This whole world is nothing but a manifestation of the self. So he sees consciousness in the world. He sees the world as a manifestation of consciousness, not as matter. He sees the world as manifestation of the self which he is. So the world is not different from him. For a jnani. For us, the world is different. So that is what Bhagwan means here. Getting rid of the whole world as what? As a separate entity. As matter. It is now, for a jnani, it is consciousness. For an ajnani, it is matter. For a jnani, it is a manifestation of his own true nature. For an ajnani, the world is completely separate from him. So this is what Bhagwan is implying here. Just a glimpse at Avadhuta Gita. The shlokas from the Avadhuta Gita, they are saying the whole universe is a projection of the mind. Therefore, it is a mode of the mind itself. When we dream is a mode of the mind, right? The dream itself, the mind itself appears as the dream and everything in the dream. It is a mode of existence of the mind. It is a state of mind. In the same way, Avadhuta Gita is saying the whole universe is nothing but a projection of the mind. The true nature of the mind is bliss. This universe, it is a manifestation of the mind. But the true nature of the mind is bliss. The mind itself is bliss. Devoid of content, the mind is consciousness. When we add content to consciousness, it becomes mind. So, Avadhuta Gita says, when the mind is stilled, when the veil of thoughts is pulled aside for a while, absolute bliss is revealed. Our own true nature is revealed. The only thing that is covering this true nature is the veil of thoughts. All this world is like a magic show. So in a magic show, a magician can conjure up a whole, maybe make us feel that we are looking at a forest. It's all illusion. Just like a mirage in the desert, says the Avadhuta Gita. Mirage appears to be real, but it is not real. The world appears to be real, but it is not real in the sense that it comes and goes, it changes all the time. But if you take it as a manifestation of the self, it is an appearance in the self, just like the mirage is an appearance on a heat wave. Concentrated bliss alone and without a second is reality, and that is the Avadhuta. So Avadhuta Gita is saying, don't pay attention to the world, which is just a mode of existence of the mind. It is a projection of the mind. Don't pay attention to that which comes and goes. It's like a magic show. It's an illusion. Pay attention only to the substratum, your true nature, which is nothing but concentrated bliss, which is beyond birth, beyond death, beyond change. So that is a parallel from the Avadhuta Gita. Just a small Puranic story, which I remembered while I was reading this shloka. In a way, it is an apt example for the shloka. So in this story, there is this Rishi. We see him, he's standing in the waters of a river and he's giving tarpana, he's offering water as an oblation to the sun. You can see he's actually having water like this in his hands and he's standing there. At that time, it so happened that a Gandharva, a celestial being, was flying in the sky above. And this celestial being was in a mischievous mood. So seeing this Rishi offering oblations to the sun, he thought, let me have some fun. And he spat into the water which the Rishi held in his hands. The Rishi got very angry. He thought, everything is spoiled. How arrogant of this Gandharva. So he went to Rama. He went to Rama, who was the king at the time, and he asked Lord Rama, now this Gandharva has insulted me, not only insulted me, he has insulted our entire tradition of the Vedas by spitting. So you please teach him a lesson. You have to punish him. So Lord Rama agrees. This Gandharva in the meanwhile realizes, oh my God, on the spur of the moment I did that, but it was a very wrong thing for me to do. So who should I now go to for protection? I'm sure that Rishi will curse me or he will do something. He will come after me for sure. So he ran to Anjana. Anjana is the mother of Anjaneya. That's how he got the name Anjaneya. So he went to Anjana and he begged her for protection. He said, please ask your son Anjaneya to protect me. Anjana called Anjaneya. She bound him by a promise and she said, you have to protect this Gandharva because I have promised him protection. So Anjaneya agrees. Now Anjaneya has agreed to protect the Gandharva and Rama has agreed to punish the Gandharva on behalf of the Rishi. So Lord Rama comes. Gandharva is hiding behind Hanuman. Rama comes with his bow and arrow and he wants to shoot the Gandharva. And Anjaneya comes to fight Rama without realizing it is Rama. So you can imagine what a shock. Anjaneya stands there and in front of him is Rama holding his bow and arrow. His Lord. He is a servant of Lord Rama. We have heard the famous statement. What is the famous statement? Anjaneya says, when Rama asks him, who are you, Anjaneya? Describe yourself. So Anjaneya says, when I think I am the body, then you are my Lord and I am your Dasa. When I think that I am very close to you, then we are extremely apta. I'm a part of you. And I'm a great devotee, I'm part of you. But when I think that I am Atma, I am consciousness, I am the self, then you and I are one. So Anjaneya is a great jnani in that sense. Outwardly, he is a bhakta, he is a dasa. Inwardly, he is a jnani. So he's standing in front of Rama, and this Gandharva is hiding behind him. And what does Lord Rama do? He says, Anjaneya, give up that Gandharva to me. Don't give him refuge. Now, Hanuman is in a quandary. What to do? On one side, his Lord is standing in front of him, commanding him to surrender the Gandharva. On the other side, his mother has promised this Gandharva protection. So, and he has promised his mother he will protect the Gandharva. So, should he break his promise? What should he do? He's in a quandary. So he just stands there. He says, I'm very sorry, my lord. I will not be able to surrender the Gandharva to you. I am bound by my promise. You can do whatever you like to me. So now Rama starts shooting arrows at Hanuman. Hanuman does not try to protect himself in any way. He does not fight. He does not use any weapons. What does he do? He's just standing like this. So one by one, each arrow that comes to Anjaneya makes a U-turn, goes back to Rama and falls at his feet, becoming a flower. No matter how many arrows Rama is shooting at Anjaneya, each arrow is going back to Rama himself, and it is becoming a flower of worship and surrender at Rama's feet. So this, in a way, is the life of a jnani. He continues to live in the world. He continues to do Loka Kalyana. Whatever adversities come, whatever challenges come, for everything, the jnani does not offer any resistance. Because for him, it is like a dream. He is in a state of complete union with the world and the self. So whatever comes, it becomes an act of worship to the Lord. Whatever he does is an act of worship to the Lord. His very presence is a blessing. So this is, in this way, you can say, the jnani gains victory over the world. Nothing can dilute the calm, the peace, the inner bliss, the love, the compassion, unwavering. No onslaught can weaken this. So this, in this way, a jnani, the one who is established in the self, has also gained victory over the world, you can say. So we have Shloka 27. Again, we will lead and follow. Let's see what this shloka adds to the previous shloka. Satyastitena ahamudeti yatra Satyastitirna ahamudeti yatra Tacha udyasthana gaveshanena Tacha udayasthana gaveshanena Vinana nashyet yadi tat nanashyet Vinana nashyet yadi tat nanashyet Svatmaikya rupa katham astu nishtha Svatmaikya rupa katham astu nishtha. So Bhagwan is saying, Satyasthitihi, what is your true nature? What is your true state? State in inverted commas. Because it is not a state. It is your real nature. What is your real nature? Na aham udeti yatra, where the ego does not arise. Where the ego does not arise, that state is your true nature, says Bhagwan. Tacha udayasthana gaveshanena, when you udayasthana, when you look, when you probe, and gaveshanena, when you search, when you inquire for the source, from where is this ego arising? From where does the mind arise? What is its source? When we involve ourselves in that quest, then in that search, Vinana Nashyet. Bhagwan says, unless you destroy the ego, unless you involve in that kind of search, unless the ego is destroyed, Vinana Nashyet, it will not get destroyed unless you involve in the search. Yadi tatna nashyet, and unless it is destroyed, Swatmaikya Rupa Kathamastu Nishtha. Swatma Aikya Rupa. How will you become one with your true nature? Nishtha. How will you become established in your true nature? Katham Astu. How? So Bhagwan is asking, is telling us, see, when the ego does not arise, that state, that is your true nature. But unless you inquire who is this ego, from where is it coming, where is its source, then the ego will not be destroyed. Unless the ego is destroyed, you will not be able to abide uninterruptedly in your true nature. That's what Bhagwan is saying. So Ganapati Muni's translation says, the real state is the one where the ego does not arise. Unless one seeks the source of the ego attentively, it does not dissolve. If the I doesn't dissolve, how can one attain the state of one's own self? What does Sri Lakshman Sharma says? He says, we are that one reality only in that state in which there is no rising of the ego sense. But how can the ego sense finally be extinguished if the mind does not enter the source of the ego sense? And if the ego sense is not extinguished, how can that state be one which is our own by nature and in which we are that? So essentially, both are saying the same thing. So let's see in the world of action. In the world of action, how does this state work? We may think, without the ego, how can I survive in the world? How can I perform any action? But remember, it is only I am the body, that ego sense that is destroyed. The rest of the faculties of the mind, the capacity of the mind to engage in action, capacity of the body to engage in action, capacity of the intellect, viveka, it remains, in fact, it becomes sharp, very, very sharp compared to what happens if we have the thought, I am the body, mind, and intellect. So there was a king, and this king decided, he had 3 sons, so he decided, I must now select one of my sons to be the future king. I would like to retire. I am now sufficiently old. I have ruled to my heart's content. It is time for me to step down and enthrone one of my 3 sons. He didn't feel that only the elder one should become the king. He thought the most eligible one should become the king. So to decide this, he called his eldest son first, and he asked his eldest son, have you done any good deed recently? So his eldest son said, yes, father. My friend was going out of town, a very, very rich friend. He had a big box full of gold and jewels, a trunk full of gold and jewels. And he asked me, can you take care of it for me for a few months till I return. Those were days when we didn't have safety boxes, when we didn't have banks, etc. So I agreed. And then my friend left it with me. During that time, Father, I could have taken away a few gems from there. I'm sure my friend would never have realized. But I never did that. Wasn't that a good deed? So his father said, okay, just because you didn't take away a few gems from your friend, why do you say that's a good deed? Why didn't you take it? So his son said, how can I live with my conscience, Father, if I take it? My peace of mind would be gone. It would go on. My conscience would go on pricking me. You broke your friend's trust. That's why I didn't take it. So his father said, that means you cared more for your own peace of mind. So because of that, you didn't take the jewels. All right. So he called his second son and he asked the same question. My son, have you done a very good deed recently? And the second son said, yes, Father. Just yesterday, I saved a boy from drowning in the ocean. Oh, is it? Tell me, what happened? How did it happen? Oh, I was walking on the seashore, Father, and then I saw this big crowd of people. They were shouting and jumping, and something seemed to be happening. So I ran there to see what was happening. And there was this boy, small boy, who was drowning in the sea. Nobody was willing to go and rescue that boy because they were scared of drowning themselves. But I jumped into the water and I saved that boy. Wasn't that a good deed? His father said, yes, certainly it is a laudable thing to do, saving somebody's life. But my son, what motivated you to save that boy's life? The son said, Father, everybody knows me. I'm the prince. I'm your son. And I'm standing there. If I say I'm scared to go into the water, what will happen to my image? What will people think of me? Therefore, I had to go and save that boy, Father. So the king says, oh, you saved that boy, not because you cared about that boy so much, but more because you were worried that your self-image, what will happen to your self-image? You wanted people to praise you. So he called his third son. He was not very happy with the reply of both his elder sons. He called his third son. His third son said, Father, as far as I remember, I have not done anything at all. Think, my son, said the father. You must have done something good. Just think. The boy said, Father, I don't remember doing anything at all. The father was deeply disappointed, but he wanted to find out if this was the truth. So he sent a set of people, investigators, to find out how his youngest son spends his time. And they came back and told him, your son is continuously doing good works from morning till night. He helps beggars. He has kitchens where poor people are served food. He has built houses to accommodate poor people. He goes on and on and on doing so many things. From morning till night, he is engaged in social welfare only. Father is very happy. He calls his son again and he says, you said you are not doing anything, but I hear you are doing all these things. And the son said, Father, I don't do anything. They happen because of the presence of the self. It is the self that is powering this body, this mind, this intellect to engage in these activities. Otherwise, I could do nothing at all. So they are happening in the presence of the self. I am not the doer, Father. I don't want to be the enjoyer of the praise and compliments which people heap upon me. His father also found out whomever his son helped, He always said, don't go out and sing my praises to anybody. Don't talk about me. So he didn't want recognition. He didn't want praise. He wanted nothing from what was happening. So this is how a jnani, an enlightened person in whom the ego has vanished, he lives without feeling that he is doing anything. Everything goes on. Whatever needs to be done will be done as perfectly as possible. But there is no feeling that I am doing it. There is no feeling that I should enjoy the fruits of whatever I'm doing. So in the Atma Bodha, Shlokas 42 and 44, we see something parallel to this. It says, when the lower and higher aspects of the self are well churned together, that means there is this base aspect, the vasanas, the bandha vasanas which are binding us, which say that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the body, I am the mind. And then we get the jnana from the guru, from the scriptures. And then that higher teaching, which says, I am the Atma. I am not the doer, I am not the enjoyer, I am infinite. Now what happens? They are churned together, manana, churning happens, churning happens. The lower self, which is full of vasanas, bandha vasanas that bind it, it is consumed in the fire that is born of the friction. That is how ignorance is removed. The teaching from the Guru is taken in and allowed to churn up the lower self. It is rubbed. And when it rubs, the friction of the fire of jnana is born. And in that fire of knowledge, ignorance is burnt. That is what Atma Bodha tells us. Then it also says, the self is always there. We have heard this, right? We have heard this. We have heard the scriptures saying it. We have heard Guru saying it. Even right now, you're the Atma. Consciousness is ever present. The self is ever present. But why are we not able to realize it? So in Atma Bodha, Sri Shankaracharya says, it is because of ignorance. We go on ignoring the self, which is powering everything that we do, because we are so focused on the small identity of the body. So Shankaracharya is saying, when you destroy ignorance, that means when you let go of the thought that I am the body, there is nothing, your true nature is revealed to you. You realize what is your true nature. So we have heard this story. This woman was wearing a necklace around her neck, but without realizing that she's wearing it, she goes around searching. Did you see my necklace? My God, it's so expensive. I want to find it. Did you see it? I must have put it away somewhere. I've lost it. Then somebody says, what is it that you're wearing? She says, oh, yeah, this is the necklace. It was on around my neck all this time. So it is a recognition of your true nature, which you already were, but we had forgotten. We come to a small boy, okay, a teenager, a 12-year-old boy, let us say. That day is his birthday. And on his birthday, his grandparents have come, all his relatives have congregated, and his grandfather gives him a special gold ring. For the first time, this boy is getting a gold ornament, this village boy. So he's so happy. He's wearing that gold ring that his grandfather gave him. And then he goes out to play with all his friends in the village. They're playing, and as they're playing, near wherever they're playing is a big open well. So he's just putting his hand up to catch a ball that ring is not all that tight. When he flings his hand like that, that ring shoots out of his finger and it goes and lands in the water of the well. So when a ring goes and lands in the well, what will happen? Will it sink? Will it float? We know it will sink, right? So it goes and it sinks. It's a big well, dark well, deep well. Now the boy is aghast. What will I do? My beautiful ring, my grandfather gave it to me just today. I don't want to lose it. And if I go home, my grandfather will surely notice and he will ask what happened to the ring. How can I tell him I lost it on the same day that he gave it to me? No. I will dive into the well and find that ring. So what does he do? He dives into the well. Will he find the ring just by diving into the well? No. It's somewhere deep inside. So he holds his breath. He goes underwater. His mind has to be very sharp and focused. He has to keep looking. A shiny thing. What is it? Oh no, it's a pebble. Is it this? No, it's a glass piece. He goes on seeing, not this, it is not this, it is not this, it is not that. Then finally, one old coin, so many things, all kinds of shining, shimmering junk. At last, coming up frequently, taking a deep breath, again diving inside. His mind totally focused, he sees the ring. And he takes it. So, Bhagwan says, now the shloka describes almost the same thing. What does the shloka say? Kupe yatha gadha jale tatantaha. Kupe yatha gadha jale tatantaha. Namajya buddhya shitaya tatantam. Namajya buddhya shitaya tatantam. Pranam cha vacham cha niyamya chinvan. Pranam cha vacham cha niyamya chinvan. Vinde nijaham kriti moola rupam. Vinde nijaham kriti moola rupam. Kupe. Kupe is a well. Yatha gadha jale, very deep water. Gadha jale, deep water. Tatantaha, when something has fallen into a well, when an object has fallen into the well, what kind of well? A well with very deep water. Namajya buddhya, just as you would dive. Namajya is dive. Just as you would dive into a well to recover something valuable which has fallen into it, Bhagwan says, into this inner well. You kept all kinds of things in that inner well, which you think is valuable. What did this boy do? He found so many things there. He found a shining pebble, a piece of glass, some a bead, which has no value, but it is also shining over there. A small bell, an old coin, pieces of glass. They were all inside the well, along with his ring. So Bhagwan is saying, inside you, so many vasanas. Just like this boy was drawn to anything that is shining. Oh, is this my ring? No, it is an old coin. So Bhagwan says, every vasana, what is it promising you? Happiness. Oh, you do this. You eat this one snack, you'll be so happy. You buy this one thing, a car or a sari or a dress or a house, you'll be so happy. That doesn't mean we should not buy things or we should not enjoy things. But what is Bhagwan saying? This will not give you lasting happiness. So into that deep well, what will you do? Not this, not this, not this. Neti, neti, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. Shitaya, just like Shitaya is like cool, focused, with your intellect cool and focused. If the mind is disturbed, if the intellect is confused, can we do self-inquiry? Very difficult. How focused was that boy? Very focused. He was not thinking about anything else except the ring when he was in the water. So be very focused in your self-inquiry, says Bhagavan. How should you do it? Pranam cha vacham cha niyamya chinvan. Chinvan is quest, search. When you search and you ask, search for the source of the ego, how should you do it? Pranam cha vacham cha. Both your breath and your speech. Here, that boy could not talk in the water, obviously. Water will enter his lungs. He can't breathe in the water. But here, by saying vachamcha, what does Bhagavan mean? He's saying inner talk. Don't engage in inner talk. Not even replies, verbal replies to your question, who am I? When you ask, who am I? Don't engage in verbal responses also. Like, I am Satchidananda, I am the infinite self, I am Brahman. No. Vacham, no thinking, unnecessary thoughts. Don't engage in idle chatter of the mind. Don't engage in verbal responses to the question. What should you do? Once you ask that question, who am I? Once it is enough. The mind is controlled. When the mind is controlled, if it is not controlled, regulate it through the breath. Make it calm, make it focused. For the quest, Chinvan, Vinde, then you will find Nija Aham Kriti Moola Rupam, the true source. Moola, Nija is true. Vinde is find. Aham Kriti, from where the Ahankara is arising. Moola Rupam, from where that true source of the ego you will find, says Bhagavan. So what is this translation? Discover the real source of the ego by exploring within with keen intellect, by regulating breath, speech, and mind, as one would do to recover a thing that has fallen into a deep well. What does Lakshman Sharma says? As one dives into a lake seeking something that has fallen into it, so should one dive into the heart with a one-pointed mind, restraining speech and breath, giving up all thought about the world and seeking, whence does the ego sense arise? Thus should one become aware of the real self, the transcendental being. So Bhagavan says, dive into the heart with a one-pointed mind. Let us sit with our eyes closed, spine straight. Observe your breathing, slow, deep breathing. Slow inhalation, deep inhalation, slow exhalation. Feel your mind becoming quiet, calm as you breathe in and breathe out. When your mind is calm, your breathing is stable, ask the question, who is aware of this breathing? Who am I? Who thinks I am the body? Who am I? There is no verbal answer. The mind is very quiet. Just stay there, very relaxed. Don't try to hold on to anything, even to that silence. You don't have to hold on to it. It's your true nature. It's enough to ask the question once. Then we stay there. If we are pulled by a thought or some stimulus, just shift your attention back to witnessing. Each time it happens, if attention is diverted, when you become aware of it, switch back. You are the witness who is aware of the thought. You're the witness who's aware of the sound. The witness is always present. No birth, no death, no change. Nothing that happens in the mind affects you. Nothing that happens to the body affects you. Nothing that happens in the world affects you. You are the self. You are the witness. Whenever you feel like it, slowly open your eyes. Before that, let us offer our pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan for his amazing wisdom. May the awareness triggered by this wisdom always stay with us and establish us in the self. Whenever you are ready, slowly open your eyes. Even with your eyes open, continue to be the witness. Everything that you see is seen by the witness. Thank you.